1, 2, 3, 4.
Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Dang bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now. Dang bling, chant down Babylon kingdom, team make we chant down Vatican now.
What up, y'all? Babylon 5 Podcast. It's your boy, Jermaine Events. How is everyone doing? Hope everybody's feeling phenomenal, fantastic. Hope your week was great. And I hope next week is even better, ladies and gentlemen. This episode is simply episode 196. I've come to grips, ladies and gentlemen. I was thinking about it probably 60 episodes ago, about just not naming these episodes. I honestly saw no reason to name the episodes as I did, but I continuously gave them names, and I feel like just numbering, dude. Episode 196, I don't episode 196, pick up sticks. I don't need to fucking have a name to go with it. It's episode 196. So we're here. Alright? We're here. Thank you guys for being here for episode 196. If you've been here, if you're new, shout out to the new subscribers. I was looking into just, I'm trying to go all in on this YouTube shit. So, shout out to all my new subscribers as of recently. I really appreciate the positive feedback. Definitely do. But this is episode 196. As you know, this week we are going to talk about UFC Fight Night, Dern versus Hill. Mackenzie Dern taking on Angela Hill. We're going to talk about that fight. A few more fights from that card. I might talk about a little more than a few, but we're going to emphasize on about 3 fights in that card. And then we're going to talk about Dana White, man. We're going to talk about Dana White, and if you guys are subscribed to the YouTube, you saw that on Thursday I released the midweek Babble, where I was discussing Francis Ngannou and the PFL situation and all the fight announcements from the UFC, which I explained I felt were just there to try to overshadow Francis Ngannou and his announcement. That's what I felt. So we're going to talk about what happened since then. Some updates with what Dana said, what I talked about in that video, my reactions to it, and some revelations, if you will, that have come out since then. But as always, if you guys would like to follow this podcast, it's right here on Instagram and Twitter. It's right here at Babylon 5 Pod. You guys can email this podcast anywhere, or email us for any reason at Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. You guys can hit that like button anywhere that you're listening to this podcast. It's available anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. Just search Babylon 5 Podcast and poof, there we are. Go ahead and hit a like. Hit the like on there. Give it a heart. Do whatever you got to do. 5 stars. Push this out. Let people know that you love the Babylon 5 Podcast. If you guys are on Twitch, follow this podcast at twitch.tv/Babylon5. If you guys would like to cop some merchandise, head on over to teespring.com/store/BOFpod-shop. And lastly, don't just be my niche, be my patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5pod, and you can be my patron today, ladies and gentlemen. You can be my patron. So last week, my prediction for Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill, as you guys know, I felt like the striking of Dern's was not on the level of Angela Hill, and I thought that would be the crux over 5 rounds of why I picked Angela Hill to win this fight. But unfortunately for one of my favorite fighters, Angela Hill, and my prediction, Dern looked very much improved on the night. Dern fucking put it on Angela Hill, catching her with these like standing knees. You just fucking just throw that knee up there, catch her clean on the chin. It was pretty beautiful. And you know, she's a fucking ace on the ground. She's attacking all these submissions. Angela Hill had to defend quite a few arm bars, and many have tried to defend those arm bars from Mackenzie Dern, and many have failed. Many Tiny have failed to defend those submission attempts. And dude, Dern looked fucking powerful in the stand-up. Her striking was great. She was dropping her with punches. And when she got her down to the ground, she's just beating her up, and it looked like she was just really fucking Angela Hill up. Angela Hill's face, you know, it didn't look the same. I was like, where the fuck did this Mackenzie Dern come from? All right, where did this Mackenzie Dern come from? Mackenzie Dern absolutely dominated. And I was watching, like, as I was watching, I was like jokingly, you know, I'd say half jokingly, I'm of the opinion that none of these athletes in these combat sports are like 100% natural. I don't believe in that. All right, I just don't believe. Look at that beautiful knee. I just don't believe in that. So, as there was like a shot, and I have it in the slideshow. It's gonna be the thumbnail for this episode on YouTube. But Dern is like throwing a punch on Angela Hill, and her muscles and everything. She's just fucking so fucking huge. She looks like a fucking monster, and I'm like, she's never looked like she has, I guess, been steadily like putting muscle on. But I remember when I was watching the weigh-ins, and I was like, dude, holy fuck, her legs, like everything's like super fucking muscular all of a sudden. Or maybe I just haven't been paying attention, but I was like, holy fuck, she looks fucking, look at this fucking shot here. Her arms are gigantic, dude. Gigantic. She looks gigantic in there. What the fuck, dude? Who is this person? And she didn't get tired at all over 5 rounds, just nonstop attacking. Punches, submissions, knees. Not tired at all. Alright, Mackenzie Dern looked like a monster in there. Angela Hill couldn't really get too much going. I mean, she was landing a few shots here and there, but like, Dern was all over her with fucking power, fucking punches and bunches. She was just all over her knees, getting her in the clinch, hitting her with knees, just like trying to take her down. It's fucking, she was all over her with that kind of pressure, dude. Like, I said at the end of the year, like, if Dern gets her shit together, Dern is gonna be a problem, and it looks like she may have gotten her shit together. I'm not trying to hate on Angie. I'm just trying to throw some rope here. Angie is 38. Okay. Maybe that could be a factor. Maybe the fact that Angie is 38 could be a factor there, but I don't know. I think that could be a factor, but Mackenzie Dern looked great against Angela Hill, and she calls out Rose Namajunas, Milwaukee's own Rose Namajunas, for a fight next. Does Rose even fight anymore? She had that fight with Carla where like she took virtually like no damage and hasn't fought anybody since. So like, does she even fight anymore? Maybe she's just like dealing, you know, she's clearly dealing with some other shit outside of punching people in the face. So I just would like to see her fight again, but it is what it is. Dern calls her out. If she gets it, that'll be an interesting fight. I think she still comes forward to, well, I don't know. Everything seemed pretty tight. The way she was throwing her punches and her strikes, she tightened a lot of that shit up. It wasn't as wild, just coming forward, thinking she could just overwhelm with whatever This was a lot more controlled. She was like she looked like a beast in there, alright? Dern looked like a beast. So, but I still feel like the precision and speed of Rose Namajunas is gonna be kryptonite to a Dern that's trying to close the distance. I feel like that's gonna be a bad day for Mackenzie Dern, or at least it should be a bad day for her as far as I'm concerned, the way that I see it, my niggas. That's a bad day for Dern, but she could walk in there and fuck Rose Namajunas up for all I know. You know, that could very well happen, my niggas. But just my prediction right now is she's calling out Rose Namajunas. It's like, maybe you could bite off more than you can swallow. Is that the phrase? I was like, bite off more than you can chew. I guess, yeah, that's the phrase. And then I was like thinking, like, who the fuck does that? You just like have no self-control. You just need to stuff however much food in your mouth as you can at one time. That's why I was just like, as I was about to say that, bite off more than you can chew, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Who the fuck lives like this? Eddie, who lives like this? Shout out to Mackenzie Dern on she looked like a monster, dude. She's fucking rippling. Dude, her arms are gigantic, dude. Who is this person? I was talking to my wife. You know, I'll be talking at her about this shit. She's not interested in it, so I'll be talking to her about it. And I'm like, she never looked like this before, all right? Her body, how muscular she was, how fucking huge she was. I've never seen her look like this, and I watch every week. That's the point of what I was saying to my wife. I was like, when I watch tape on these people, and I feel like, damn, the way this person does this and the way the person does that, it's pretty obvious that this person is going to dominate this fight. But then I'll watch, like, then the fight happens, yada, 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 yada. My point being is that I said to her, it's not that hard. Just watch all the fights every week. And then you'll have some idea of how this person is going to fare against that person. You'll have some idea based off of the information that you currently have. You know what I'm saying? And this Mackenzie Dern, based off the knowledge that I have, you know, the ground and pound was a new wrinkle in there. Just a vicious ground and pound. It looked powerful, dude. She didn't look like the fighter that I remember, ladies and gentlemen. She looked like a whole new fighter in there. So, congrats to her. And, yeah, man, maybe she gets that fight. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she wants to fight Yan Xiaonan. For whatever reason, they didn't give Yan Xiaonan the fight. They gave Amanda Lemos the fight against Zhang Weili. Whatever. She just got choked out by Jessica Andrade in a standing arm triangle. I also feel like Irene Aldana was losing to Macy Chiasson until Aldana caught her with that fucking up kick to the liver. With a lucky ass up kick that she didn't know was some devastating up kick until she got up ready to keep fighting and saw that Macy Chiasson could no longer continue. But I felt the title situations that they have going on are weird, and it's pretty easy for somebody like Dern to insert herself in there with this fucking buffoonery that's going on out here. It's a lot of buffoonery. So much buffoonery, man. Y'all need to chill with all this goddamn buffoonery, because there's a lot of buffoonery going on this fucking with all the women's divisions, man. You got Amanda Nunes holding 2 belts just for marketing, just for fucking marketing. Never has to defend that belt. Then you don't sign fighters for that division because you just assume none of these fighters can fuck with her in that division anyway. That's fucking ridiculous. It's buffoonery. Buffoonery all over every women's division except for my nigga Grasso over there. And shout out to Valentina. That's the best women's division right now. That's the best women's division. Also on this card, you had your boy Fluffy Hernandez beating the shit out of Edmund Shabazian, and as I told you guys, like, he's gonna be better. I told you guys last week he would be better than Shabazian everywhere. I saw some people on Twitter, they were trying to say like, oh man, Shabazian is overrated. Nah, he's not overrated. He's pretty good actually. He looked a lot better in that fight than I expected him to do. Okay? If you saw that and felt like he was overrated, it's just because you niggas don't listen to the Babylon 5 podcast. When I tried to tell you here, fight after fight, Anthony Hernandez is a problem. Alright? You guys can see it now. He's a fucking dog. He's just gonna keep coming forward, put that pressure on you. Similar to how we saw Dern fight. But he's gonna use this wrestling just all over you, attacking you with elbows. The coaches I was hearing in his corner say, they were like 3 elbows and then wrestle. So they were having him advance positions and then like attack more and then advance positions. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. He wore Edmund Shabazian out just as he should, because what do we see with Shabazian? He can't handle grapplers. I think he misunderstood who the fuck Anthony Hernandez was and thought he was in for a striking match. It's not how Anthony Hernandez fights. I saw this booking and I was like, that's fucking kryptonite for somebody like Edmund Shabazian, who we've seen can't handle the wrestling. That was just a bad matchup for Shabazian. His team should not have allowed him to take that fight. Alright? That was a bad booking for him, but I don't know what's next for Hernandez. If he called somebody out, I'm not sure who he called out. I feel like he said he's just ready for whoever they give him next. Yeah, I'm down for whoever he fights. I told you guys last week, he's a tough fight for everybody in the top 15. That was my thought. And I believe everybody with that right there, they saw Anthony Hernandez is a tough fight for everybody at the top 15 in middleweight division, and he probably beats a lot of them. Nobody really has this kind of pressure other than the Russians. You know, all my favorite Russian fighters that I just heard about like 2 weeks ago. They all my favorite new fighters that just came up 2 weeks ago. He's got that pressure like those guys, but he's a fucking dog. Tough fucking Mexican, dude. All the Mexican fighters are just tough as shit. First round, he's fucking getting touched up with that jab from Edmund. They're like, oh, Edmund's hurting him. I'm like, I'm not seeing this boy fall to the ground. If he ain't falling to the ground, even if he is falling to the ground, I bet he get right back up. Get right in that nigga face again. Nigga's tough. Built Mexican tough, alright? Anthony Hernandez is a beast. I try to tell you niggas about Fluffy. I'd love to see Fluffy versus like Gerald Mearshart next. I think that'd be a cool fight. Is Mearshart ranked? I know he just fought like Piper. I'm not sure, but I'd like to see something like that. It's no disrespect to Mearshart at all. I just think that'd be a pretty interesting fight. Also on this card, another fight we're going to talk about for a second here. Chase Hooper, man, versus Nick Fiore. I picked Fiore just because I don't like what it looks like when Hooper gets hit. And even in this fight, ladies and gentlemen, when Fiore was able to land clean on Hooper, his chin just like snaps back and it's like this weird, like, it looks pretty bad. All right. And if Fiore was a better striker, I mean, it was pretty much a stalemate on the ground with the grappling. Fiore being a jiu-jitsu teacher, and then, it was a stalemate with the grappling. Okay, it was a stalemate with the grappling, but it was but in the stand-up, Chase is like, hitting him with these elbows. He's just stepping in with these elbows, just trying to slice this man up. He's all over him, punches and bunches. Like, this is the best Chase Hooper I've ever seen. And I'm looking at these photos of him. I still thought he looked pretty small last night, but as I'm looking at these photos and he's throwing these punches, this nigga's fucking huge. All you motherfuckers are on the steroid. This dude looks huge all of a sudden. It's the guy who's talking about he celebrates his wins by going to the M&M factory or some shit. There's like some M&M like factory that he could like go get custom, or it's like an M&M store or some shit. You go get like custom M&Ms. All right, that's that guy who is celebrating by going to get custom M&Ms. Now he looks like a monster. All right, I don't hear him talking about M&Ms no more. Chase Hooper looked like a beast. I say Fiore, if that striking gets a little better, he's gonna be a problem. I think he didn't prepare for this kind of striking from a Chase Hooper. I think that could be a big factor in what happened in the striking here, because this is the best striking I've seen from Chase. But as far as on the ground, Fiore is going to be a problem for a lot of people. But that was a good fight. Chase Hooper looked great in that one. I'm excited to see what this guy looks like at lightweight, because he's definitely a problem for people if it goes to the ground. And the problem before for Chase Hooper was that he needed it to get to the ground, and it was a liability for him if it was standing at all. He was just there to get teed off on, you know. He was just there to get teed off on, and he just pray that he could get his hands on you and somehow get it to the ground, and that he didn't get knocked out before he got it to the ground. But he looked great. So I'm interested to see what Chase Hooper looks like in his next fight, hopefully at 155 pounds. Dana White, man. So, as I mentioned, Thursday I put out a video, Midweek Babbles, to talk about the announcements of Tuesday. Francis Ngannou announces that he signed with the PFL, right? He announced that, I believe, on Sunday, either Sunday or Monday. He announced that he was going to make his announcement on Tuesday. Tuesday morning, he was gonna, or it was either Tuesday morning, Tuesday night. He said Tuesday he was gonna announce where he's going. I was off from work Tuesday. I woke up at 4:30, grabbed my phone, and like 4:30 in the morning, and I grabbed my phone, and it's like the notification like just came in. It says Francis Ngannou signs with PFL. I was like, oh shit, that's interesting. Later that day, you know, if you guys want to know about how I felt about that whole contract, go watch the Midweek Babbles on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's pretty interesting. Go watch it, give it a like, tell your friends about it. So then later in that day, Dana White tweets out, I'm going live in 30 minutes with some announcements, some major announcements or whatever, huge announcements. And it's all these fight announcements. And the one of the fights that I talked about in the Midweek Babbles was Paulo Costa versus Ikram Aliskerov. And one that I said I would talk about later was Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. Because honestly, I watch Sterling's podcast. Okay, I listen to his podcast. So when they announced that fight, I was like, I don't even think that fight's gonna happen. That's how I felt, because I was already aware that Aljamain was hurt and was probably not gonna be able. He did an interview with Ariel where he was saying he didn't feel like that was a good timeline for him. All right, he already said these things, so I didn't feel like I needed to even talk about that fight. So that fight seemed weird to me. But Paulo Costa versus Ikram Aliskerov, damn, that's not Ikram, that's Sean. That's Sean Strickland. I wasn't paying attention at all. I'm not wearing my glasses. Anywho, so he, as I talked about it the other day, it's supposed to be Paulo Costa, Ikram Aliskerov, but as I saw on Twitter, people were asking Paulo Costa about the announcement, and he said the UFC is lying. He has not signed a contract to fight Ikram Aliskerov. He said that fight is not happening. All right, he said it a couple times as I saw on Twitter, and I was like, what the fuck? Dana did just announce these fights because he was trying to overshadow fucking Francis, and I'm like, O'Malley, this fight isn't signed either. He just announced these shits to overshadow Francis. I forget. So when they asked him last night at the post-fight press conference about the PFL situation, and he starts out saying how like he likes the PFL and that they know him, and that if he didn't like a person or a promotion, that he would let them know about it. He, like, everybody would know about it, you know what I'm saying? He would let it be known. And then he goes on to say that the deal with Francis makes no sense. You're gonna pay a guy to not fight. Let's listen to this clip though, because he says he likes them, and then he goes on this whole little rant here.
No, what they're doing makes no sense to me. Their business strategy. I'm hearing that they're raising money right now. You know, 280 million, 300 million.
280 million
from the Middle East, and I've done a lot of business in the Middle East. Those guys are sharp, and they know what to do. I don't know who in the hell would give them $280 million, because I'm hearing they're buying.
So yeah, he's saying that PFL is getting 280 million from someone in the Middle East, and because he's saying the whole deal with Francis makes no sense, and that he hears that they're buying Bellator, which has been rumored here. I haven't mentioned it, but this is pretty interesting what he says here.
Bellator, right? So you're an organization that's burning cash, have no ratings, and selling.
I'm going to go back for a second here, because I just want to repeat that he said he likes the PFL. And if he didn't like the PFL, he would let it be known.
Give them $280 million, because I'm hearing they're buying Bellator, right? So you're an organization that's burning cash, have no ratings, and selling no tickets, and you're going to raise $280 million to buy a company that's burning cash, sells no tickets, and does no ratings. It sounds fucking absolutely genius to me.
Right? He likes the PFL, and if he didn't like them, he'd let them know. He just shit all over the PFL. Shit all over the PFL, shit all over Bellator. Francis, when he was asked about Bellator, did they make him an offer? He was like, no, they came to me and they were like, yo, at this time, we just can't get into it. So they were like too pussy to go against Dana White. And Dana White still shit on. They were being good little boys. And Dana White still shit all over Bellator, shit all over PFL. Later on, he goes to say, like, he's like, I don't get the whole thing. He started off with saying he didn't know anything about the deal, but he knew a lot about the deal as he was getting into his rant and saying how, like, he's like, from what I'm hearing, like, he just suddenly is just hearing all these things, every detail of the contract. He's like, from what I'm hearing, Francis isn't even fighting their champions, which he isn't. He's not set up to fight ONE FC's champions. He's gonna fight in the special fight promotion or some shit, or what is it called, or super fight. He's fighting in the super fight division. He's not fighting in the heavyweight division against the heavyweight fighters. He's fighting in the super fight division. So at some point in that rant where he was talking shit, I was like, this nigga's kind of making some sense there a little bit, but you still hating because you're jealous. If he had signed back, you would have once again like, oh, yep, he's the scariest man on the planet, El Predador. But the nigga was like, nah, nigga, we trying to have niggas fight in Africa. We trying to get African niggas on the map as far as this fighting shit is concerned. And you was like, nah, nigga, we can't do it. We can't even do it. We was like, we told this nigga we'd give him $8 million a fight. Then Eric Nixon comes out and was like, nah, he said he'd give me $8 million for the John Jones fight if I won. And then my money goes down drastically after the John Jones fight. And it's like, yeah, he's trying to make it seem like he was like $8 million a fight for the rest of your contracts, for the rest of the fights on your contracts. But that's not what he was doing. He was like $8 million for one fight, and then probably go back down to like $200,000 for the next fight. You know what I'm saying? That's what the top dudes, unless you're like Conor McGregor, make probably you lucky if you get like 100 to 200,000 to show. And then you get double that if you're lucky if you win. I was going to talk about McGregor forever, but I haven't finished. I watched the first two. Very interesting, very insightful as far as Conor McGregor, because I fucks with Conor. You know, I wish he wasn't doing something. When the shit happens, you know, I feel it. I'm like, fuck, I wish one of my favorite fighters wasn't doing this. I wish John Jones wouldn't keep hitting his fucking wife, dude. Cut it out. Cut it out. Don't ever do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish my favorite fucking athletes weren't pieces of shit. So whenever Conor does some bad shit or some bad shit comes in the news, I'm like, fuck. Really wish he wouldn't do those shitty things. But it's interesting because he is clearly putting on a persona. And you can see it in the documentary, the persona, like when he gets in front of people and he does this bullshit and he's just drinking and yada yada yada, but behind the scenes, like how sad he was after the Khabib loss. You know what I'm saying? That was a very emotional post-fight locker room. Very emotional. And it's not the vibe that I got from Conor in the night. That's not the vibe that I got from Conor in the night. It was like, I don't care, whatever. He's tweeting like, you won the battle, but I won the war type shit. And everybody's like, what the fuck is he talking about? What is he talking about? He was just putting more on to the character. When you see the cameras following everybody, he and his whole team were back there crying. Everybody was emotional at the end of that. So I haven't finished it. I watched like the first 2 episodes. I want to get through it, the next 2, and then maybe do like a little midweek thing to talk about that and whatever else I feel like talking about. But it's pretty interesting, the insight, because just how emotional he was, like injuries that he was dealing with before the Khabib fight that I've never even heard mentioned. I've seen him talk about that fight, and he'll mention like drinking and doing this and not really training right. And then you watch this video and it's like, fuck, he was injured like right before this happened, and he's never once mentioned it. He fucked his toes up like he had a foot injury he was dealing with 3 weeks right before the fight. 3 weeks before the fight, he hurts his feet. He like breaks his toes. He's dealing with I think something else happened to him too. But I've never heard him mention these things. It's just like, Conor. This is pretty fucking interesting. I can't believe he was like, oh, it's the drinking, it's that. He was putting all this other shit, and he was actually dealing with injuries and all that shit, and he's never mentioned it. I thought that was crazy. So midweek, we're definitely going to go back in and talk about that. Just to jump back in on that fucking Dana White shit. You know, it's same old story with him. That's why it's like, I don't even really know what fights are actually going to happen. Did Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier know that they were fighting for the BMF title? Did they even know that they were fighting each other? I don't know what about that shit that was announced is actually real. You know what I'm saying? Who knows what's actually going to happen, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, next week, ladies and gentlemen, we have no UFC, so it's unfortunate for your boy, because, you know, that's what this whole podcast is about. But we're going to talk about the card after that. You know what I'm saying? Next week, we're going to talk about the next week's card when it comes, because she'll be riding around the mountain when she comes. I didn't necessarily want to talk about Devin Haney versus Vasily Lomachenko, but I saw that it was pretty controversial. I watched like the first 3 rounds. I was like, let me just see how I feel about it for a couple rounds. Like, first 2 rounds I gave to Devin Haney, and I didn't like how the commentary was like, oh, he needs to make some adjustments. I was like, man, he was touching him clean And I was like, even watching it live, it was like he barely, like Lomachenko's throwing combinations but not landing everything, and then they'd show the replay and like it'd be like, oh, Lomachenko with a beautiful 4-punch combination, and he'll land just one punch in there. And I'm like, why are they still hyping it up? The slow motion replay just showed he only land one punch. So I was watching the first 2 rounds and the third round, and I'm like, oh shit, Loma's landing some shit now. He was catching him by that point. So yeah, I didn't finish that. I'll maybe talk about that in the midweek Babbles. I'll try to get that out like Wednesday, if anything. But yeah, I'm gonna get up out of here, guys. Thank you guys for being here another week. It's episode 196. If you guys want to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon5Pod. You guys can email this podcast at Babylon5Podcast@gmail.com. If you guys would like to hit that like button anywhere that you're listening to this podcast, subscribe if you're right there on YouTube. If you like the cool videos and all the Zoom and shit. Yeah, I was telling you niggas last week, I was upset because I didn't get the camera and all this shit. And yeah, I think this looks pretty cool, personally. Let me know how you guys feel about it, if you'd be so kind. And yeah, give this a like, hit subscribe. If you guys would like to follow this podcast on Twitch, head on over to twitch.tv/Babylon5. You guys can purchase some merchandise by heading on over to teespring.com/store/BOFpod-shop. And honestly, don't just be my Niji. Be my patrons. Head on over to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod and you can be my patron today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again. This is episode 196. I will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Hope you guys are taking care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you when I see you. I'll holla.
Chant down Babylon kingdom. Team make me chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling chant down Babylon kingdom. Team make me chant down Vatican now. Chant down Babylon kingdom. Team make me chant down Vatican now. Bang bling bling chant down Babylon kingdom. Team make me chant down Vatican